Hello, 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 and welcome back to BSB Preview. I'm Sandy Lowe, Bold Strokes Senior Editor. You guys all know me. Just going to give everyone a minute to filter into the Zoom. It always takes a minute. So my question for our lovely panelists before we begin is, where did you get the idea for your book? And why don't we start with Renee? Where did you get the idea for your book?
Actually, it started with one of the characters. My family's kind of in the construction business, and I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if there was a female construction worker that kind of hit the rocks, and it happens all the time in the construction business because the market crashes, or there's no materials, or people are just saving their money, and that's where it started for me. So that's Lee Walker's character.
I love that. See, I would have been like, character in a tool belt is where it would start for me. So
well, she does have a tool belt, but
I feel like that's important too. Georgia, how about you? Where did you get the idea for this book?
This book is the beginning of a series, and I read some mainstream romance, and I find that with the series in mainstream, you've got the Jill Shelvises of the world and the Kristen Higgins and the Nora Roberts, and they always tend to write about siblings who, and then each sibling gets their own book and their own love story. It's a little harder in the LGBT community, but what I figured out was that I could use cousins from a large Italian family like my own because I have 9 cousins and 4 of us are gay. So I thought I could, yeah, I know, right?
Oh, very cool.
It's rampant. So I took 3 cousins, and then they each get their own book and their own love story, and they're tight like sisters.
I love that. And I love the story behind it. I didn't know that. That's very cool.
Yep.
All right, Fred and Chaz, you guys can answer separately or together, or what, make something up. One of you could be like, that's not what happened.
Yeah, so actually, so it started with character, and actually it started with kind of a secondary character in our 2019 novel, in case you forgot, this character named Elijah Golden, who came up at the very end as a love interest. And we started thinking that Elijah was so cool and so interesting and so eclectic, and we wanted Elijah to kind of have his own space and narrative as a main character. And so that's where Elijah Golden, who's in Busy Ain't the Half of It, came from.
Okay, awesome. Do you have anything to add, Chaz?
That is accurate.
All right.
People asked about Elijah when we were doing like book readings for the first novel. And so we wanted to create a world where Elijah had center stage.
Cool. Awesome. All right, so I am going to pick eeny, meeny, miny, mo for our first reading. Actually, I'm going to share my screen because unfortunately Toni Logan cannot be with us tonight. So I do have a recording from her. And she is reading from her recent release, The Marriage Masquerade. So if everyone else could please stop their video and mute. And here is the wonderful Toni Logan.
Hi, I'm Toni Logan, and today I'll be reading from my book, The Marriage Masquerade. And the book is about Taylor Braxton, who's a personal trainer, and she just inherited her grandfather's small beachside bed and breakfast on Maui. But there's a catch. Since her grandfather disapproved of her lifestyle, he had written into his will that she can't take possession of the keys of the B&B until she gets married, and she won't get the deed until she stays married for at least 1 year. But since the stipulation did not specify that she had to marry a man, Taylor tries to find a woman who can marry her for a year, live in Maui, then divorce with no strings attached. Enter Jaden Wheaton, who was recovering from a really bad car accident and had recently hired Taylor as her personal trainer. During one of the sessions, Taylor mentions her stipulation, and Jane jumps at the chance to spend a year in Maui, hoping the warm temperatures will help with her chronic pain. So the excerpt that I'm about to be reading today takes place after Jaden and Taylor agree to get married so that Taylor can fulfill the stipulation. And Jaden right now is about to fill her best friend and Andy on the whole situation. I got your text message. So what's the big news? You couldn't wait to tell me until I got home from work. You know, I'm one of those people who has to open a present the moment I see it. That whole delayed gratification crap was created by a psychopath. Andy rambled as he shrugged out of his coat and hung it on the rack by the door. I know, and I'm sorry for torturing you. Jaden grabbed his hand and led him to the kitchen. 2 glasses of red wine sat by ceramic plates. Candles were lit. A small bouquet of flowers graced the middle of the table, and her best silverware was properly placed on top of cloth napkins. An extra large pizza box sat off to the side. I made dinner tonight, she beamed. Well, Pizza Pete's made dinner, and someone else made the wine, but I put it all together. Andy cocked his head. So the big news is that you figured out which wine to pair with pizza? He opened the box and gasped. You ordered my favorite. He pulled out a slice, piled high with black olives and onions, and placed it on his plate. Jaden handed him a glass as she lifted hers. First, a toast to the bride-to-be. She clinked his glass. Oh yeah? Who's getting married? He said as he took a big gulp. I am. Jaden had to smack him on the back 3 times before he was able to catch his breath. Sorry, Andy. I guess I should have timed the big reveal a little better. Is this a joke? He sat and thumped his chest with his fist as he coughed one last time. It's no joke, and I would be honored if you were my man of honor. Okay, first of all, you owe me a story worthy of an Oscar. He picked up a slice of pizza and shoved half of it into his mouth. I'm waiting, he mumbled as he chewed. Well, you know Taylor from the gym. She spent the next half hour filling him in, and by the time she finished her story, she was wiping tears from her eyes. For the next year, she was going to live with a beautiful woman on a beautiful tropical island. Fairy tales like that just didn't happen to her. So, what do you think? She reached over and grabbed the last slice of pizza from the box. He leaned back in his chair. I have a few questions. First, what are you going to do with the house? Jaden had put a chunk of the settlement money down in a cute 3-bedroom home. 2 years ago, Andy had moved in after his boyfriend had dumped him for a male model and had told him he had 24 hours to pack his stuff and get out. What was supposed to be temporary had turned out to be a beneficial arrangement for both of them. They cried on each other's shoulders, ranted about their exes, and lifted each other up when they were feeling down. But more than anything else, having Andy in the house helped chase away the loneliness that had become an unwelcome but constant companion. Nothing. I'll be back in a year, so it won't change a thing, Jaden said. Good answer. Second, what's the color scheme of the wedding? Tell me it's blue with a slight peach accent, and you'll win this round of questioning. Blue with peach. Yep, you got it, Jaden said as she visualized Taylor standing next to her wearing a dark blue tux. She knew from seeing her in skin-tight workout clothes that she would be stunning in a tux. Her body tingled with the thought, oh, get a grip, she scolded herself with the reminder that none of this was real, not even close. Excellent, Andy continued. And third, will there be sex? Andy, she playfully backslapped his shoulder. Oh, come on, a year on Maui, please. Fake marriage or not, that place is so romantic. It's not like that, we're just friends. But Jaden had wondered how she was going to handle being with the most gorgeous woman she knew in a tropical paradise for a year and not wanting to be with her. I'm going to handle it the same way I've handled my feelings for every other woman I've met since Carol. I'm going to overthink it, convince myself I'm not good enough, and do nothing. Blah, blah, blah. Andy tapped his fingers to his thumb as he mimicked the talking mouth. Friends to lovers, it happens all the time. Well, not this time. This is about Taylor fulfilling a stipulation in her grandfather's will and me getting to spend a year in Maui for free. After that, we'll divorce and I'll come back here and get on with my life, and she'll stay there and get on with hers. Oh God, that sounds so depressing. I mean, think about it. You're not even married yet and already you're planning your divorce. Yeah, I guess when you put it like that, it does sound kind of depressing and pathetic. Oh well, welcome to her life. Can your amazing, handsome best friend come visit? I'll make it a deal breaker if you can't. He jumped up and hugged her. I'm so happy for you. Well, it's not a real marriage, but maybe this will be a nice warm-up if ever I do find someone who wants to be with me. A somber cloud settled around her. Ever since her accident, she had been so self-conscious of her scar and limp that she'd allowed both to chip away at her self-esteem. Andy sat back down. Hey, none of that. You hear me? You'll find your happily ever after because you're an amazing and beautiful woman. No, Andy, I'm not. At least not anymore. Honey, I don't ever want to make light of what happened to you or your struggles, but the accident shattered your leg, not your libido. You're a beautiful person, Jaden. Any woman would be honored to be with you. Plus, you're my best friend, so you bring an extra bonus point to the table for that. Jaden smiled, but didn't bother to reply. She had listened to the spiel so many times. Between her therapist, Andy, and her other friends, she heard every inspiring quote ever written. And while they all held merit, she knew she would never stop comparing her life before the accident to the one she was now living. Feeling beautiful came from the inside out, and living in a body she had grown to hate felt anything but beautiful. Come on, Andy said. Let's go watch a rom-com and cry over a sappy and unrealistic story. Or if you'd rather, we can troll your ex on social media and make snarky and trashy comments about her. Jane smiled. Oh, that is always fun. But I think I'm in more of a rom-com mood tonight. Movie night it is. And tomorrow I'm taking you shopping. Andy helped lift her out of the chair. She stumbled a bit as she put pressure on her left leg, but quickly regained her footing. No, that's okay, Andy. You know how much I hate. Hey, listen to me, he interrupted. The wedding might not be real, but damn it, you're going to look amazing faking it. Jade leaned into him as they walked to the main room. She wasn't sure what she had done in her life to deserve this, but whatever it was, she was grateful. Maybe in the end, she would still have her Cinderella moment. After all, the ball was just beginning, and she was a year away from the stroke of midnight.
Aww. Well, I have to say that I'm glad Andy asked about the sex because I totally would have too. And if you like Marriage of Convenience, Friends to Lovers, a wounded heroine who gets her happily ever after, The Marriage Masquerade is the book for you. I just posted the link to our sale in the chat roll. If you are interested in 15% off ebook pre-orders for all our August releases, please follow that link. Alrighty, next up, let's hear from Fred and Chaz, reading from their August release, Busy Ain't the Half of It. Why don't you guys intro this book, but also tell us a little bit about this context because you have one that comes before it too. So tell us a little bit about this world as well.
All right, so thank you so much. And we're so happy to present Busy Ain't the Half of It. It's a contemporary second chance, friends and lovers romance novel with elements of family, found family, savvy teens, and what has been deemed Black excellence. It follows Elijah Golden and Justin Monroe, nephew and uncle respectively, who seek happy ever afters in LA, but are they too busy to notice happy when it's there? Now, Elijah is an aspiring actor who auditions by day, does some theater by night, works 2 jobs on the weekend, all while trying to keep his relationship with Zaire, who appeared and was a main character in Case You Forgot, Coasting on Bliss. Justin is a single father with teenage twins and a TV journalist who's been replaced at the news desk. And now that he's no longer in the public eye, living true to his sexuality is something that Justin can finally do, but not at the expense of his twins or his career. So Chaz will read a short excerpt first from Elijah, and then I'll follow up with a very short excerpt from Justin. Chaz?
Thank you. And this is an excerpt from chapter 1, Elijah, The Right Time. We're sitting at our favorite places to come to after a long night out, Kitchen 24, on Santa Monica Boulevard in West Hollywood. I'm having a nightcap. My best friends, Ezra and Renee, are both having tequila with their pancakes and bacon. Typically, if we are at Kitchen 24, it's because we're having a light dinner and drink in the early evening. I try not to stay out late like this because of my early morning routine and work, but today it's not like our usual. Tonight, we are celebrating Ezra's return to center stage. They've been on a little sabbatical from drag performing. First thing tomorrow morning, I'm scheduled to go to the farmer's market with my Uncle Justin. Wish I could cancel because I already know sunglasses, aspirin, and water will be my only saving grace. The only thing keeping me from counseling is the fact that he hates when people change plans. So I'll suck it up and deal with the consequences of partying like I'm 23. I'll have him pick me up from my boyfriend Zaire's apartment because I'm not in the mood to catch a lift tonight to my home in K-Town, not being this intoxicated. I'm a lightweight when it comes to drinking. I'm on my third and final drink. So after this, I'll feel more comfortable stumbling over to Zaire's, which reminds me, let me text Uncle Jay, giving him that pickup update, and let me call Zaire and ask if it's cool if I could stay the night. I haven't seen Zaire in 4 long days as both of our work weeks have been busy. And although it's pushing 2 in the morning, I hope he answers because I'd like to hear his voice. Besides, I'm sure he's not asleep because we rarely go to bed without saying goodnight over the phone or text. It's a practice we've had since before our relationship became public and official 2 years ago. When the phone rings, there's a soft tickle in the pit of my stomach. It's only been 4 days without seeing each other, but I miss him. When did I become this smitten? He picks up on the first ring. Hey, love, Zaire says. His voice is warm and raspy. Hi, did I wake you? I'm smiling. Zaire asks me about my night. I tell him I am enjoying my night with Ezra and Lene. I ask him about his night. He tells me he went over to see his nibbling and came back home, ordered takeout, then Netflix and chill. I smile even more. He tells me he misses me. I ask him if I could come over after I finish eating. He tells me I never have to ask and reminds me that that's what the key he gave me is for. Having a brief conversation with Zaire has me walking on bliss back to my table, but before I can sit myself down and readjust in the booth, Lene asks, why aren't y'all living together again? I continue to scoop myself into the center of my side of the table so that I'm sitting directly in the middle, facing them both. That seems to be the question of the season, I say. That's a little
Justin, the timing is off. It's a little after midnight, and since it's the weekend, and since it's my house, and since my young ones are out at a summer dance at their high school, I've decided that a third glass of wine with Trevor is all right tonight. I rarely have the house to myself on weekends. Justice and Junior, my 16-year-old fraternal twins, are usually home from their boarding school in Burbank on weekends, and also during summer break, unless their cousin Elijah decides to drive them around LA on their little dates and friend outings, or unless they get in a mood and decide to stay in their residence hall for the weekend. And it's rare for Trevor, my best friend, to be in on a weekend night. He's usually out on a date, a hookup, or some kind of adventure with a new man. I wish I had the same courage Trevor has when it comes to dating people who aren't as well known as we are. Hell, I wish I had the courage to date. It's been 3 years since my ex-wife Janine left to find her bliss, but dating and finding bliss are not things I really have the time to do at this point in my life. You see, I anchor the weekday More at 4 with Justin Monroe and co-anchor the Live at 5 newscast. Trevor Smith to everyone else, does the 4 and 5 o'clock newscasts at a rival station across town. We're making history in Los Angeles, being Black men and being the main anchors LA turns to for news and information. Truth be told, I wish I was Trevor's lover. Or at minimum, that we had an arrangement. I could be like one of his app's hookups and dates, but one who he actually knows, loves, and respects. Maybe even a friends with benefits deal for people like us who are in the industry and can't exactly head to a mall or a club or out in the streets and find someone to date. I'm often finding myself happily jealous Trevor has found the courage and freedom to be fully himself and not be nervous dating whomever he wants. It's the same freedom I supported my ex-wife Janine to seek when she said that when she said that everything bad happening in the world in these times, she needed to go out, leave the young ones and me, seek her joy, and be a free Black woman. I thought this crush on Trevor would have ended in my 20s and not be part of my life in my 40s. But here I am, single, happy, envious of Trevor's life, and wanting to be something other than the best friend pining for more. That's Busy of the Half of It, coming out in August. Thank you all for your time and consideration. And please connect with Chaz and me for podcasts, book events, panels, book clubs, and more. And we'll put our socials in the chat. Thank you so much.
That was awesome, you guys. And I'm sure as you noticed, you're getting lots of love in the chat roll too. So that's great. And I noticed in your intro, there's a lot of threads in this book and in your previous one too, in all these characters and the ways they intersect. How is that like to write as a writing team, right? You have two writers and you have all these various characters with all their own arcs. How do you keep it straight? How do you make that work?
How do we make it work? Well, Fred and I, we've known each other for many, many years. So I think our personal relationship helps us into being creative together. So we have a Google Doc where we write together, and our method is taking lead on characters and we make sure that their lives kind of intertwine. Now we don't always agree, but we always find a way to make things work. I'll say that.
Yeah, and I'll have to say really briefly that Chaz is a really great detail person. So when I write something, he's like, that wouldn't have happened. And he goes back several chapters earlier and he keeps me on track. And so I really appreciate our writing partnership.
That's great. Lovely. All righty. Next up, we have Renee Roman, who's reading from her August release. I'm super excited about. Renee, why don't you intro your new book and start reading whenever you're ready?
Sure. This is Hot Days, Heated Nights. It comes out August 1st. And I'm going to be reading an excerpt from about the 3rd chapter. Hot Days, Heated Nights is a contemporary romance. Cole Jackson owns a gas station and repair shop in the small town of Inlet, New York. Lee Walker is a construction worker whose employer went bankrupt, forcing her to move in with her uncle until she gets back on her feet financially. The women spoke a week ago when Lee stopped to fill her uncle's car with gas, and the heat of attraction was instantaneous and out of the ordinary for both women. Lee sang along at the top of her lungs, carefree for a change. It all came crashing down when loud bangs came from under the hood. Shit, just what she needed. One more thing to go wrong. Luckily, the gas station wasn't far. You borrowing vehicles on a daily basis? Cole's lopsided grin would have been alluring if the situation didn't involve her only form of transportation, though it didn't stop the tingle that started low. I wish this one's mine. The tension from earlier returned tenfold. It's making a horrible noise. Cole's expression became serious, as though sensing her angst. Let me take a listen. You mind? She gestured toward the cab. Lee watched Cole fluidly jump in and turn the key. The loud series of knocks and bangs began again. I'm going to take it in the garage so that I can get a better look, Cole said, her brow creased. Lee watched as her truck limped into the vacant stall. Cole popped the hood and leaned inside. Lee held her breath. What I thought, Cole said as she wiped her hands on a rag. It's a cracked crankshaft. She shoved her hands deep in her pockets to keep Cole from seeing them shake. Why was this happening? What's it going to cost to fix? Lee wasn't sure she wanted to know. I wouldn't know for sure until the engine's out. $2,000, give or take. I'll have to order the parts either way, so it'll be a few days before I can start the repair. If it needs an engine rebuild, it's likely not going to be worth the expense. Fuck. The word left her lips before she could censor it. The more she tried to get ahead, the more behind she got. She met Cole's gaze and recognized the empathy in them. Sorry. Cole shrugged. Not like I haven't heard it or said it a million times. She ran her hands over her face. She needed to come up with a game plan. Maybe she'd hear about her unemployment claim in a day or two. Can you keep the truck here and wait on ordering the part? Cole nodded. I've got room out back. It'll be safe there until you decide what to do. Thanks. She should have explained about the delay, but the idea of Cole seeing her as unable to take care of herself or lacking the ability to pay for necessities left her feeling exposed. Up until a month ago, she'd been doing pretty good. And now bad news seemed to follow her everywhere these days, and her footing was off. The sympathy in Cole's eyes wasn't helping. Cole raised the back bay door after Lee cleared out the cab, piling her things outside the entrance, and drove the noisy truck around the building. Back inside, Lee approached her, and she looked so lost. Something inside of Cole tugged at her compassionate side. Lee was obviously going through a rough time. I'm closing up for the day. I'll give you a ride home. I can call my uncle. No need. It's really not a problem. Isn't it a little early? Lee asked as she stared at her. She quirked her eyebrow. I'm not overrun with customers at the moment. It's one of the perks of small town living. Cole dropped the bay doors and locked them, then went to the office to set the alarm before exiting. Lee stood with a small cooler at her feet and a beautifully wrapped present in her hands. Come on, mine's the red one. Cole's heart rate picked up speed. Lee stowed the package and got in. Nice truck. She looked around and ran a hand over the gleaming surfaces. How do you keep it so clean? Cole glanced at her profile. Strong chin, sculpted cheeks, perfectly shaped brows. It's not easy, but I try to get off as much crud as I can before getting in. She pointed to the seat cover. This helps. I wash it once a week and take it off when I'm not in work clothes. Sweat trickled down the side of Lee's face. A drop followed the line of her chin and fell onto her chest, disappearing beneath the dark tank top. When she brought her eyes back up, Lee was watching her. I've gotten used to the heat. I'll put the air on for you. She reached for the control and Lee caught her hand. I don't mind sweating. Lee's fingers were strong, warm against her skin. Her belly tightened. Good to know. What else were those hands capable of? How would they handle her body? She inhaled sharply. Why was she thinking about a virtual stranger having sex with her? She silently laughed. Weren't most of her sexual partners strangers? Very few were more than acquaintances. Cole had always been the one to lead when engaging in sexual forays, and thinking of letting Lee take her somewhere she'd never been caught her off guard. Was this the harbinger she'd felt for the last few weeks? She'd never hesitated before when the urge had been this strong, yet she'd resisted time and again, not questioning the reasoning, but accepting she was looking for more than a one-night stand. Cole flexed her thighs and shifted her weight as they hit the road. I was going to have a burger and a beer on the way home. She faced Lee. Join me? Lee stared out the window. I don't think so. She should let it go. Clearly, Lee wasn't interested in what she was offering, but she wasn't dissuaded. I'll accept no only if you have other plans. Lee laughed heartily. She made eye contact. The sheen of sweat on her face made her all the more desirable. It's not that. Funds are a bit low these days. Being frugal, you know? Cole breathed a little easier, knowing she wasn't the reason Lee hesitated. I believe I asked you, so there's not an excuse. Small town etiquette means when someone asks you, they pay. It's a rule. A rule, huh? She was quiet for a minute, looking deep in thought. Okay, it's not like I'm going anywhere without a vehicle. Her grin was wry and heart-stopping at the same time. But if you don't mind, I'd like to stop and drop off my stuff. No problem. Dan doing okay? I haven't seen him in a while. He's great. She tipped her head toward the back. The presents for him, she swallowed, then went on. He's given me a home when I didn't have one. There was more to the story, but she didn't want to make Lee uncomfortable by asking a lot of questions. That's nice of him. And you. He lives, yes, I know, Cole smiled. Everyone pretty much knows where everyone else lives in town. Lee's eyes held hers. Will I be front page news as a newcomer in town? Don't worry. I'll make sure everyone knows you're okay. She pulled into Dan's driveway. Do you want to come in? Maybe another time. Don't rush on my account, though. Lee gathered her things and went in the open garage where Dan's vehicle was parked. The rows of neatly stacked and labeled boxes were probably Lee's, and Cole wondered how long she planned to stay. Cole recalled the look on Lee's face when she'd given her the news about the truck. The closing door jarred her into action. Lee strode more confidently and got in. Her hair was wet, and the pink glow of her chest wasn't just from the sun. The idea that Lee had showered for her pleased Cole more than it probably should have. Thanks for waiting. The flirtatious smile playing on her mouth suited her much better than the earlier consternation. Cole backed out. Like I said, I've nowhere else to be. Does that mean I'm your only choice for entertainment? Lee asked with a questioning lilt. No, you're my first choice. She refused to look over and let Lee see how much her smile affected her, or how surprised she was by her body's reaction to Lee's presence. The internal conversation she was having did nothing to quell the thoughts of Lee's generous mouth on hers. Maybe she wouldn't have to make that trip out of town after all. Thank you.
This book is sexy. Thanks. So we
Thank you.
learned a whole lot about your characters from that reading. Tell us more. Tell us more about how their backstories inform who they are now in terms of the romance.
Well, Cole's father passed away unexpectedly, and I seem to have frozen up. Can you hear me?
We can hear you great.
Okay. She promised to keep running the garage for him, and she's having second thoughts. But Inlet's all she's known, and Lee comes along to show her that there are more things in life than what you've always known. And here's Lee thrown into a situation of living in a small town where she was just living outside of Atlantic City. So they kind of clash, but there's definitely some heat going on.
All right. I love it. All right. Next up, we have Georgia Beers.
Howdy.
Who is, as mentioned, previewing her new series. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay.
Reading whenever you're ready.
All right. I'm going to read to you from Shaken or Stirred. This is the first in the Swizzle Stick romances. There are 3 of them, and they are based around 3 cousins, the Martini cousins, Julia, Vanessa, and Amelia. The first book is Julia's book. She's the one who owns the bar, Julia Martini. She owns a bar called Martini's. She's just taken it over from her uncle. It's been around for ages. She has updated it and is hoping to increase business, but business takes up more time than she was expecting. She has met, from where I'm going to read, she has met a woman named Savannah. They only met when Savannah came in during a very busy night with her friends. There was an instant physical attraction, but they didn't really get to talk a whole lot to each other. So in this scene, Savannah has had lunch with her friend Tiffany, who has found herself with the rest of the day off. And Tiffany has dared her to go into Martini's to see if Julia is there. She doesn't even know Julia's name at this point. So she's debating with herself whether or not she should do this. And then she does. It wasn't often that Savannah had an afternoon off, and part of her brain wasted no time listing things she should be doing. The list included checking in on her father, texting both of her siblings, mopping her kitchen floor, and getting some much needed groceries, not necessarily in that order. What the list did not include was going into Martini's in the middle of the day, yet she found herself standing at the front door with her hand grasping the handle. What the hell am I doing, she thought. It was 2:00 on a Monday afternoon, not at all an appropriate time to be in a bar, though her brother would vehemently disagree. The thought made her chuckle to herself, which is what she was doing when the door pushed out and almost knocked her down. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," said a tall man in khakis and a button-down Oxford with a jacket. He had a messenger bag draped over his shoulder, and he reached out to her with one hand, probably to prevent her from falling, as he held the door open with the other. "Are you okay?" Savannah nodded, felt the flush of embarrassment in her cheeks. "I'm fine. Daydreaming is all." "Well, daydreaming is underrated, if you ask me." His smile was brilliant. His green eyes were kind. "Going in?" he asked, and gestured the doorway with his chin. I am now, she thought. Not much choice now that she'd been standing there in full view of everybody inside. It would be weird if she didn't go in. With a nod, she thanked the man and headed into Martini's. Wondering if there was some rule in the bar owner's handbook about keeping bars as dim as possible, She had to stand still for a moment so her eyes could adjust from the bright sunlight outside to the low light of the interior. The windows had those dark, sheer blinds that cut the sunshine but still let you see outside, and she blinked rapidly, hating that she was just standing there, on display. As soon as she could make out shapes, she took tentative steps toward the bar, grabbed the first stool she came to, and sat. She would have to order something now. She couldn't not. That would be weird. She looked down at her purse and fished for her wallet. Well, hello there. How was it possible that Savannah knew that voice already? It made zero sense that she would. Last time she was here, it had been loud and crowded, and you had to almost shout to be heard. But every fiber in her body recognized the husky voice of the hot bartender as she made herself raise her head and look into those deep, dark eyes. Hi. A word. Okay, just one word, but it made sense at least. It's great to see you again, hot bartender said, and something in her tone made Savannah think that she actually meant it. I mean, I'm not usually visiting bars at 2 o'clock on a Monday, but she had no idea what to say after that. And also there were a couple other people seated around that obviously did visit bars at 2 o'clock on a Monday. And she heard Tiffany calling her judgy and she didn't want that. So God, why is it my mouth can only manage one word, but my brain won't shut up? But here you are, hot bartender pointed out. Here I am. You want a drink? She hadn't come in to drink. She wasn't much of a day drinker, even when on vacation or during a weekend. But right then, at that moment, when she was hella nervous and couldn't understand why, the thing she needed more than anything in the world was a drink. Yes, please. They stared at each other, held eye contact for what felt like it could have been hours. Everything about hot bartender was, well, hot. Her dark wavy hair was pulled back, the ponytail higher than when she'd seen her last. It made her look younger and cute, but still hot. Her t-shirt was black, a V-neck with that lime green Martinis logo, and it did everything it could to pull Savannah's gaze in the direction of the cleavage that taunted. Forearms on the bar, the bartender tipped her head, her dark eyebrows arched, an amused smile on her shiny lips. God, so fucking hot. The words shot through Savannah's head like they were launched from a bow. Do you have a drink in mind, or do you just want me to guess? Her voice was playful, and when the corners of her mouth lifted in a grin, Savannah almost groaned out loud over a feature she hadn't noticed in the crowded dark the last time she was there. No, not dimples. So unfair. And then she said words that she had no memory of forming or thinking about or giving herself permission to say. They just came out all on their own. Surprised me. The end.
Oh, I love it. That's so cute and sexy. And who doesn't love a sexy bartender, right?
Right? Come on.
So this is book 1
Correct.
in the series, but you have actually written all the books. Is that right?
Yeah. I just sent the third one just went off to my editor on Thursday.
So tell us a little bit about these cousins and what is it that makes this book special?
The cousins, so Julia is, the cousins, Amelia's the oldest one. Vanessa's the youngest one, and Julia falls in the middle. They're Italian cousins. They're very tight. I'm sorry, my dog is barking. I'm just going to ignore him. They're very tight, and they are all gay, obviously. And so that has made them gravitate towards each other as they've grown up. Amelia obviously was the one who came out first. And as the other two were figuring out their sexuality, they gravitated to her. And then the three of them have just ended up very tight like sisters. Julia, this first book is about her trying to balance being a small business owner and trying to date and putting way more of her energy into her job than she really should. Savannah is a home health care aide, and what she does in life is take care of other people. That's what she's always done. She never puts herself first. So they both have those kinds of, I don't even know what the word is, that those are things they are trying to overcome, and they help each other to overcome them.
Cool. Awesome. I'm super excited for that series.
It was a lot of fun to write. I find it interesting because what I usually find with the series is the first one is exciting because you're just getting into it. And the second one writes itself because you already know all these people and everything. And then by the third one, you're bored and you're done and you want to be finished. But when I finished the third one, I was kind of sad. And I'm really going to miss these characters. They were a lot of fun to write. I had fun with these books. I hope that people like them as much as I did. I know, Cindy, Archie's crying. He's being terrible. He's right here and he's just being obnoxious because I've been gone all day. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, that's really great news for Fred and Chaz, who, are on book 2, and maybe you're either going to be bored or you're going to miss it. But
it's not the fun factor as far as I'm concerned.
Who knows? Maybe there'll be a book 4. Who knows? Could happen. All right. If you have questions for our lovely panelists, we do have time for Q&A, so please pop them in the Q&A box and I will ask whatever you want to know. I have a question to start us off, and that is, what trait makes your protagonist interesting? So pick a character in your book. What trait makes them interesting? And Fred and Chaz, you can pick different characters. Hopefully you can read each other's minds.
Okay, well, you know what? I'll start with the character of Justin, and busy ain't the half of it. And I think the trait that that's really, I mean, Justin is busy. Justin is juggling a full-time family, a full-time career, life as a TV news person. And I think that the busyness can sometimes, I'm getting stuck right here, bleed over into a little bit of arrogance with his family, although he really cares about his family. But he's always talking about, I support this person, this person, this person. I send checks to Louisiana and things like that. And so I think that busyness that Justin has is going to humble him at some point in the novel, and it does.
I like that. Well, that's a good lesson for a character and a good lesson for all of us too. Chaz, why don't you pick it up? What makes your character interesting?
I think Elijah's kind of independence, kind of, I don't want to say ignorance, independence, like it's his world. Elijah's in his world, but he also cares. But I think what's most interesting is his independence, and it explores that kind of independence, his journey with negotiating in his mind, his freedom.
But he's also in his world because he's an actor, and so he's always thinking about himself and thinking about performing and everything. And so I found that really interesting about him.
Yeah. I like that. Where's the line between reality and performance? It's cool. Renee, how about you? What trait makes your character interesting?
Well, Cole is a solid character. Like, she knows her world, she has her ethics. She's grown up in this small town and knows everybody, and everybody knows her. And that's a good thing. She's a caregiver. And Lee comes along, and it's obvious that Lee needs some care. And she wants to give it to her, but Lee is standoffish because her parents never accepted her. And there's some real angst with that whole take care of me, no, you're not going to kind of thing. So that makes for an interesting situation, especially with the attraction.
For sure. Another independent character has met their match. Georgia, maybe we should ask Archie. Archie, what is it that makes your mama's character interesting?
I think with Julia, it's about her daddy issues. She's the only daughter in a family of Italian boys, and is endlessly seeking the approval of her dad. She is convinced that because she's gay, she's a disappointment to him. And she will, that she deals with that throughout the book. And that kind of wraps up in this book, but the characters are all in all three books. So you see a little of that carry on. Savannah, as I said earlier, is taking care of everybody but herself. She has a brother who's an addict. She has a sister who's going through a breakup. She's got a father who's in the very early stages of dementia. And her father has a girlfriend who is actually very good to him, but her mother is gone. And Savannah feels a little bit replaced, which surprises her when she realizes that that's what she's feeling. And I kind of liked that. As the oldest sibling, I feel like it's my job to look out for my younger siblings. And if someone came along and started doing that for me, I think I'd be a little hurt by that. So that was interesting to write, along with the daddy issues, which I think I write a lot. What does that say about me? Yeah, I might have some of my own.
I think that's something that a lot of our readers can relate to as well. So awesome. All right, we have a question from Jeff. This is directed to Fred and Chaz, but I think everybody can answer this one. So for Fred and Chaz, how did your writing process change from the first book to the second?
Well, what I can say is with the first novel that we did together, In Case You Forgot, we really did collaborate. I mean, we worked together pretty much every day, but definitely on Saturdays, we would meet at a library in West Hollywood and rent one of the study rooms and work together. This time around, because I had a little bit of a life transition, I moved to a new city, got a much busier job. And so Chaz took lead on a lot of the novel in terms of writing way far ahead of me. And then I had my weekends where I could kind of catch up. And so that kind of changed where I kind of, no, Chaz led most of the writing of the novel, which was great this time around.
Yeah, and that's a great question, Jeff. Thanks for asking, because I remember you had us on the podcast and we said Fred's style of writing is more of a sit down and write without outlining. And so the first novel, we pretty much did that. But this novel, because I had more of the time, I outlined a lot. And we got the book done during the pandemic.
And I so appreciated the outline too. It really helped out a lot.
So one of you is a pantser and one of you is a plotter. That's interesting. I would think that would make things difficult, but it seemed like it worked really well for you guys.
This time around.
Yeah, it worked out well. And also, I think because we know each other and we trust each other as well. I don't know, have any of you ever co-authored or co-written with someone? And what did you find that to be like for you?
I think about doing it, but I haven't done it yet. I think it would depend on the other person. I mean, I think you have to mesh, right? I mean, you have to understand each other and give each other some leeway, I would think.
Yeah, I just started writing with someone else, and we're doing alternate chapters, and we each have a character, and we're into chapter 6, so it seems to be going okay. I have a new character for me to write. I'm writing a non-binary character, so that's a new step for me also. So we'll see where it goes. Once it's written, then we're going to send in the proposal to Sandy and see what she thinks.
Awesome. That's exciting.
I'm also laughing every time Fred says, in case you forgot. I'm like, in case I forgot what? Oh, that's the middle of the book. He said it twice. And I was like, what is he worried that I forgot?
I think you could call the next one This Time Around. that one stuck with me. Georgia, you've written about a gazillion books. Has your writing process changed?
It's about to. I think it's ebbed and flowed and it's evolved a little bit, but I have always been a very organized person. And I ended up surrounded by writers who are pantsers. And I thought I should be doing that. And so I started to write that way, which doesn't really work really well for me. So when I made this series, I made myself a little Bible full of things so I wouldn't forget who's driving what, who's got what color hair, you know, what the distant cousin's wife's name is. But the book that I'm about to set out on, I plan on outlining a lot more than I used to. And that has a little bit to do with like, I'm not 25 anymore and I don't remember a whole lot of things. So I have to write stuff down. So I think it's going to be a little easier for me that way. But I started out that way. When I wrote Too Close to Touch, I had the whole thing on index cards. I had it all spread out on my dining room table. And I was like, that's my book. And I don't know why I got away from that, because that book wrote like that once I outlined it. So I'm going to try to get back to that. I've kind of done this for the past 30 books. So we'll see. We'll see if it works a little better.
Yeah, sometimes the outline is intimidating. It's a lot of work up front and you kind of get lazy and you're like, oh, I'll be fine. I can do it. And then you get halfway through the book and you're like, what did I do? So, all right. And you should definitely auction that story Bible off somewhere. I know some readers who will want to get their hands on that. Renee, how about you? Has your process changed?
Absolutely. I was a total pantser at the beginning, and I still like that process. But in the editing stage, it ends up being a lot of work. So I'm doing more upfront, like with the last proposal that I sent in, going a lot deeper into the story and the characters and the motivation, and I'm getting some great feedback, and then taking off from there. We'll see how it goes. I'm only 3,000 into the book that's due December 1st, and I'm gonna just plug right along until I get it done. I love being under pressure though, so I'll be fine.
All right, there you go. That's another great title, Under Pressure. I don't know, it's a panel for great titles tonight. Hope you guys are writing these down. All right, unfortunately, we are out of time. I am so sad. It's been such a great panel previewing our August releases. I will thank you to all our great authors for being here and amazing readings, and have a great night.
Thanks, everybody. See you next time.